All right, in this video, you're going to see the test review for the Unit 2A test on inequalities and equations worked out and explanations given to you so that you can help prepare yourself for the upcoming test. All right, for numbers 1 through 4, you are either distributing or combining like terms depending on what it's got. Remember, in order to determine if you're distributing, you must see parentheses. If you don't see parentheses, then that must mean you're combining like terms. So for 1 and 2, there are parentheses, so we will distribute. Distribute means multiply the outside number to each number inside or each item inside. Negative 6 times m is negative 6m. Negative 6 times negative 4 is going to be a positive 24. Watch your signs because that's going to be something you guys are going to need help with. For number 2, negative 3 times 4y is negative 12y, and negative 3 times positive 5 is negative 15. Okay, there's nothing you can do any further to those questions because it was just distributing. When you get to 3 and 4, you're going to see there is no distributing, but you can combine things. You must combine the variables first and then the constants last. So in number 3, we can combine 3r with minus 5r. 3 minus 5 is negative 2r. The 12 has nobody to go with them, so we just bring it down in the back. For number 4, you're going to start with the k's. 12k minus 4k, 12 minus 4 is 8k, and then you'll notice that positive 9 and negative 15 are just regular numbers, so we can put those together. They are like each other. 9 minus 15 is going to produce a negative 6. Okay. For 5 through 14, you're going to notice that they're all different kinds of equations. We want to pay careful attention to the steps that you're showing and the work that you're providing. You will start off one step and progress to longer and more difficult questions. All right, so for number 5, this is a one-step equation. In order to get rid of negative 12, you want to divide by negative 12 on both sides. Okay, cross it off, and y equals negative 144 divided by negative 12 is positive 12. Go to number 6. You need to get rid of double signs first before you do any type of operation. So this is d minus 13 equals negative 74. That allows you to see that you need to get rid of the minus 13. To do that, we add 13 to both sides. You get d equals negative 74 plus 13 is negative 61. All right, for 7 and 8, these are both two-step equations. Remember that you want to move the constant first and then deal with the number attached to the variable. So in this case, we want to subtract 19 from both sides. That leaves us with negative 3r equals negative 9. Then we want to divide both sides by negative 3, and r equals positive 3. Okay. For number 8, we want to get rid of the minus 12 first because that's the constant, so we're going to add 12 to both sides. Now that leaves you with x divided by negative 4 equals positive 16. To get rid of divide by negative 4, we have to multiply by negative 4 on both sides. That gives you x equals negative 64 for an answer. All right, for 9 through 14, you're going to see multi-step and variables on both sides. All right, so this is where the big bulk of our unit has come from and where we've been practicing the most lately. All right, so for number 9, there is no distributing, so then you look for combining. I see some things I can combine together, so let's go ahead and do that. Negative m plus 4m is going to give you positive 3m. Then you can join positive 7 and minus 6 together. 7 minus 6 is a positive 1, and that equals 13. You are right back to a two-step equation. So you want to subtract the 1 from both sides. You have 3m equals 12. Divide by 3, and m equals 4. Okay, remember most of these equations lead you back to a two-step at the end, so that's second nature for you and a good experience. For number 10, you have to be very careful with ones that look like this because the top is trapped over top of the bottom. So in order to get started on this, you have to get rid of the bottom first. Because it's divide by 6, the way you get rid of that bottom is to multiply both sides by 6 and cross it off. So now you have negative 5y minus 4 equals 3y times 6, which is 18y. You can see you have variables on both sides, which means the smaller one has to go over, right? Because that's the way we were doing it in class, and that's the easiest way to attack these problems. To get rid of minus 5y, you are going to add 5y to both sides. So now you have negative 4 equals 23y. Okay, to get rid of the 23, you have to divide by 23. Okay, and then watch what happens. 4 does not divide by 23. It makes a decimal, but you're not allowed to give me a decimal answer because there was no decimals in the original problem. So again, when the numbers don't divide and you see a decimal on your calculator, the division problem that you were left with is the fraction your answer becomes, right? Unless you can reduce it, there's your answer. So y is going to equal negative 4 over 23. Okay, decimal answers are not accepted, right, when it comes out to be a fraction like this. All right, for number 11, I see parentheses, which means I have to distribute. Okay, so negative 7 times x is negative 7x. Negative 7 times negative 11 is a positive 77 equals 0. And we're back to the two-step. Subtract 77 on both sides. So you have negative 7x equals negative 77. Okay, divide by negative 7. And you get x equals positive 11 off of that one. For number 12, there's no distributing, there's no combining, there's just variables on both sides. Right? When you're looking at your variables, you have a negative 9w and a negative 3w. If you're trying to move the smaller, the number that is farthest away from 0 is your smallest number. So in this case, that would be minus 9w. All right? So the opposite of minus 9w would be to add 9w to both sides. Now we have negative 5 equals 7, and negative 3 plus 9 is going to be a positive 6w. And here we are right back at that two-step. To get rid of positive 7, you have to subtract 7 to the other side. Negative 5 minus 7 is negative 12 equals 6w. To get rid of 6, you want to divide by 6, and that leaves you with w equals negative 2. Okay. For 13 and 14, they are a continuation of multi-step. Okay, so in number 13, you'll see there's no distributing, but if you look on the left side, you can combine something. So let's go ahead and do that first. 6x minus 9x becomes negative 3x minus 4 equals negative 2x minus 2. Right? And now you notice you have variables on both sides. Negative 3 is smaller than negative 2, so that's the one we're going to move. The opposite of minus 3x is to add 3x. Okay, that leaves us with negative 4 equals negative 2 plus 3 is just 1x minus 2. You only have one more step to do in this one. It doesn't take you back to the two-step. Right, to get x by itself, we're going to get rid of minus 2 by adding 2. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2, and that equals x. There's nothing else to do in this problem. If you divide by 1, you're going to get right back to the same answer we have right now. All right, for number 14, you see that there is distributing, and it's happening on both sides. So let's go ahead and do that first. 2 times negative 3k is negative 6k. 2 times 5 is a positive 10. Equals, go to the other side. Negative 4 times k is negative 4k. And negative 4 times positive 4 is negative 16. Right? You'll notice there's nothing to combine, but you do have k's on both sides. So we're looking at negative 6k and negative 4k. The smallest one is negative 6k. So I'm going to add 6k over. Right, that leaves me with 10 equals negative 4 plus 6 is going to be a positive 2k, and then bring down minus 16. And now you're back to that two-step. We're going to add 16 to both sides. So 10 plus 16 is 26 equals 2k. Get rid of the 2 by dividing by 2. Okay, and that leaves you a final answer of k equals 13. All right. For number 15 on the back side, you'll notice that it's still an equation, but this time we're dealing with properties. The properties that you can choose from are in the box. If you don't see it in the box, you can't put it down. The first step has been given for you. It is the actual problem. That's why it says given. Right? But when you go to do step 1, you have to ask yourself, well, how did I get from what was given to me to step 1? And if you know the process of how to solve something, you can see that the parentheses are no longer there, which means they did 4 times w to get 4w and 4 times negative 5 to get minus 20. And that's known as the distributive property. Okay. Well, if you look in the next step, in step 2, you'll notice that the negative 20 and plus 2 are now gone, and they become negative 18. So if you take negative 20 plus 2 and make negative 18, you have combined like terms. Right? So that's the next part. Okay. If simplifying is there in your box as an option, you choose that, but when it's not, you have to pick something from the box that's there. Okay, and then to get from step 2 to step 3, you'll notice that the w's have changed. So we're looking at variables on both sides, right? And when we do that, that means the 1w is going to move. So we subtract w from both sides to cancel it off. When you subtract the same thing from both sides, that is what is known as the subtraction property of equality. Right. For step 3, you'll notice that the minus 18 is gone from step 3 to step 4. So in order to get rid of minus 18, we have to add 18 to both sides. And 3 plus 18 is what made that 21. Right. So when you add the same number on both sides, that is known as your addition property of equality. Right. And then for step 4 to get to step 5, you'll notice that the 3 is gone and the 21 becomes a 7. So in order to make that happen, we have to divide by 3 on both sides, which is known as your division property of equality. So you'll have a couple of questions on your test that will ask you to identify properties of the problems, right? And it will give you a box to choose from. Right, for the next section of the test review, we're looking at inequalities, which is where we spent the other part of our time. So for numbers 1 and 2, we're going to practice graphing them on a number line. Remember, you have to have at least 3 numbers on that number line so that I know you know how to count. Okay, so for x is less than or equal to -7, we want -7 in the middle. One below it is -8. One above it is -6. Right? The sign in the middle, the less than or equal to, determines two things. It determines the kind of dot you need and the direction you're shading. Right? So because it's got a piece of the equal bar, we are putting a closed circle. And when it says less than or equal to, that means we are shading to the left-hand side. If the variable is on the left side, then the arrow is actually showing you which way to shade. Okay, but in number 2, when you notice that the variable is not on the left, before you start graphing, so that you don't mess it up, flip it around so that it makes the variable on the left. So instead of saying 5 is less than x, we want x first and 5 second, which means the sign has to flip. Instead of being a less than sign, now it's going to be a greater than sign. That will guarantee that you get your graph right. If you don't take the time to do that, I can't guarantee you good results off of it. So we need 4, 5, and 6 on our number line. Because it's greater than, we need an open circle, and greater than points to the right, so that means we shade to the right. Right, for number 3, we're just going to write one from an actual situation. And when you have to write an inequality, you need a letter, a symbol, and a number. So I'm going to use the letter X, and the number that's in the problem that we need is 1175. Now what we have to figure out is what symbol would make the word minimum happen. All right, minimum means it can equal that number, so we do need the equal sign, right? But that means it's the lowest it can be. So I can't go any lower than 1175. So because of that, I need the greater or equal to sign, right, to go right there. So think about the words and think about the situation that's at hand and ask yourself some questions and then pick the symbol that goes with it. Right, for 4 through 7, you are solving the inequalities and then turning around and graphing them. Right, you do have to solve them correctly or your graphs will not come out right. The biggest difference between an equation and an inequality is the fact that you must remember that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality symbol. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as equations. So for number 4, to get d by itself, I'm going to subtract 4. Negative 11 minus 4 is negative 15, okay, which is greater or equal to d. Now, if that's all we had to do was solve it, you could stop and leave it there, right? But because we're going to turn around and graph it, my recommendation to you is that you flip the sign and the variable around. So the variable's on the left, the negative 15 is on the right, and instead of saying greater or equal to, the sign should now say less than or equal to. That's going to ensure that your graph is going to come out good. So you need negative 15, you need negative 16 below it, and negative 14 above it. Right? Because it's got a piece of the equal bar, you should be having a closed circle. And now that we know it says d is less than or equal to negative 15, we are going to shade to the left side of that problem. Okay. Number 5, in order to get negative 5 to go away, we are going to divide by negative 5. Because we divided by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. That's what the rule says. So instead of less than, it says greater than. And negative 35 divided by negative 5 is positive 7. So put 7 in the middle, 6 below it, 8 above it. Open circle on 7 because there's no piece of the equal bar. And because it says greater than 7, all the numbers greater than 7 are your answer. All right, for number 6, we want to get rid of the constants first. This is a two-step. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. You have y divided by negative 2 is less than 6. To get rid of divide by negative 2, we are going to multiply by negative 2. And because we are multiplying by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. So it's going to say y is greater than negative 12. Right? Put negative 12 in the middle. Below it would be negative 13. Above it would be negative 11. Okay? You'd have an open circle on negative 12, and because it's greater than, it's going to shade to the right. Okay, for number 7, you'll notice there's variables on both sides, so do exactly what you do with equations. You're going to move the smaller one. The smaller one is 2p, so I need to subtract 2p from both sides. And that's your first move. You're going to have one more move after that. That's why this one's considered a two-step as well. All right, so 3p minus 2p is just 1p, plus 2 is less than or equal to 6. All right, to get the p by itself, you're going to have to subtract 2, and that leaves you with p is less than or equal to 4. Okay, you do not have to flip a sign because you did not multiply or divide by a negative. All right, so now we have 4. We need 3 below it and 5 above it. A closed dot should be on 4, and because it's less than or equal to, you should be shading left side of it. All right, the last section on this test review is to translate expressions and equations, not inequalities, just translating expressions and equations. You're not solving them either. You're just translating words into actual symbols. All right, so looking at letter A, 4 more than twice a number. The phrase more than means to add, so you can do 4 plus twice a number means to do that number 2 times. So 2 times x. Or if you have it a different way, you can still be correct. If you write 2x plus 4, I cannot mark you wrong for either one of those. As long as the 2 is in front of the x, and as long as it says plus 4, right, you've got it. For letter B, the quotient of 10 in a number gives 9. Quotient means to divide, right? So we're using the division bar, not the old elementary division sign, okay? And the number that you see, or the item you see in front of the word and, okay, here's the 10 and a number. So the first thing you see is going to be the top, so 10 goes on top. And a number, we don't know the a number, so that's where your x comes in. Gives 9 means equals 9. You are not solving it, you are simply translating it. For letter C, the key phrase is less than. Be very careful about that. Less than means put a subtraction sign. And the number in front of that phrase less than is really going to go behind the minus sign, so it flip-flops around. So 6 less than means to put minus 6. And we're subtracting the product of -3 and a number. Product means multiply -3 and a number. Well, because it's a number and a variable, you're going to put -3 times your letter. Right? The -3 needs to be in front of that variable. For letter D, it says the sum of -12 and a number yields 0. Sum means to add. So we're going to take -12 and we're going to add some number that we don't know. And it yields 0, which means it equals 0. So you will have a small section on the test that deals with translating. You need to know the key words of product, quotient, sum, difference, and then you also need to understand that less than is one of those tricky ones where the order matters. So once you know all of that, your translating piece will be okay. So use this to study for and prepare for this upcoming test, and hopefully you'll see some good results.